Hi, I'm Steven, the host of the MENA Surge podcast, your ultimate source for Web3 and FinTech-related news in the MENA region. We're powered by FinTech Surge and Future Blockchain Summit in association with GITEX Global, an integral part of Expand North Star taking place October 13th through 16th at Dubai Harbor. We're excited to be partnering with Web3 TV and its host Ornella Hernandez for Web3 Talks.
Hello and welcome everyone to this episode of the Web3 Talks. My name is Ornella Hernandez and this episode today is in partnership with the MENA Surge podcast. So we have a special guest, Thea Myhrvold. How are you today?
Good, thank you for having me.
So you are a tech entrepreneur, the CEO and founder of GetBee. Yeah. And GetBee is a company that started in the UAE, in the MENA region, and is expanding internationally. Very exciting time for you guys. I know that you're in the retail and AI space and you want to empower sales teams. So I want to hear all about it.
Yes.
But first, I wanted to ask you what you're doing today in Dubai.
So I'm between New York and Dubai at the moment and excited to be back in the region. We have local clients and partners that we're here to meet. But I'm actually headed back to the US tomorrow for a conference with Microsoft next week. So excited to sort of see that international growth and expansion that we're having, both in the Middle East, because we're proudly started here as well, but now also with global impact, which is really inspiring.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about why you're going to Las Vegas. I know that you have a partnership with Microsoft. That's super exciting. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
There's a big event called Shop Talk. It's one of the biggest sort of retail tech events that are happening. And I'm very proud to share that Pegasus is a program by Microsoft. So Microsoft for Startups has over 40,000 startups in their portfolio, but they've sort of selected their top 100 globally. And we're very proudly part of that program. So what that means is they're actively selling and distributing our software to their top clients and partners. So that's really exciting to have the power of Microsoft in the United States with us. Just now, we were also speaking with them at a conference called NRF in New York at the Javits Center. So 40,000 people there, got to speak on different panels there as well, got to present to some amazing brands and hopefully some big news coming out of that soon as well.
Okay, can't wait to hear that.
Yeah.
So let's give pretend I'm an investor and you're giving me a pitch, so like a 30-second overview of what GetBee is. Yeah.
So we're a B2B SaaS or software that enables any brand or business to offer live video sales on their website. So think about consultative selling. The last time you went to a website and you saw a chatbot, it must have been quite frustrating if you were buying a car, real estate, the skincare. Imagine having a child for the first time and a whole universe of baby products. Anything that's consultative where you have questions and you want to talk to a person.
Okay.
That's where we come in. So
for the online experience.
For the online experience. We call it a phygital, physical and digital experience. So you're connecting your online customer to your physical sales team, the people that you've already trained and invested in. That might not have people 24/7 in your store, but you have people 24/7 online, right? Today, the customer lives and researches both online and offline. In fact, 70% of people research online before they usually purchase offline.
Yeah.
So
I do.
Yeah, right? So having that same level of customer service or experience in your digital research journey, especially if it's a big emotional purchase, makes a big difference on conversion rate, the average basket value, and so on.
Okay. So then how does it work exactly? Let's say I'm trying to buy makeup or skincare online. And there's a few products that I'm choosing between. I want to learn more about them. So tell me about the customer experience when it comes to GetBee.
Perfect. So we have some amazing skincare brands that we already work with, like Dermalogica for skincare products. And then locally here in the UAE, Facet Facial Bar. They're a famous facial bar in Business Bay, and then they also have a sort of e-commerce platform. So what that looks like is if you're on the website, instead of talking to the chatbot, it actually says, talk to our skincare therapists. And you'll see like a little video of somebody explaining that to you. You click, you instantly call, and via video, you can start talking to a skincare therapist or a specialist on their side. So you're actually dialing into the store while you're in the comfort of your home. And then you can potentially explain, oh, I have this skincare concern or I have these issues, and they can recommend the different products, but also guide you on how to use the products in the best possible way.
Okay, so it's like telemedicine, but tele-e-commerce in a way?
Exactly. A virtual consultation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so I know AI is a big part of the back end.
Yes.
So could you explain maybe at a bit more of a high level what exactly is going on in this backend in real time while the customer is having this consultation with the sales expert?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a really good question. So, everybody's talking about AI and automation these days. And just to sort of emphasize, we want to put the human and that personal touch in the center of AI. I think there are so many companies that are building amazing algorithms and LLMs and all of these things, but we are in the business of context. We have all the context data points that we can reference, so you can actually make insights and sort of actionable outcomes from those sort of data points. So what we do is we cross-reference, where a person clicks to what is recommended, to what is actually said in the sales conversation, to what is bought. Because for us, our virtual consultation, you start a call, but you can also then transcribe and analyze the conversation, see what is recommended and what is actually sold, because we have that whole end-to-end transaction in our video sale. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's interesting because now you can start to see sort of analyze trends that you otherwise are not recording physically in a store.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see.
Okay. Sorry, just think about like as a sales manager, you can see like what questions do people have before they buy?
Right.
If you can have that insight, even for your marketing team, your product team, these are really actionable insights that we're otherwise not having access to.
Is there anything that surprised you that came out from some of this data that maybe you didn't expect to when it comes to like the data points or questions that people ask?
I think it depends per industry, right? Because skincare is very different from cars. But I think the interesting insight there is people have a lot more questions than we realize in the purchasing journey. And the brands who do this really well train and invest in their sales teams because they know, for example, in skincare, usually it's between 4 to 6 months of training before you're on the shop floor. So that in itself was a really interesting insight to say, okay, there's value here. What can we learn from these conversations so that we have better conversions and better outcomes for our clients?
Yeah. Okay. So I love how this is all happening in real time.
Yes.
And it's taking the experience of a physical salesperson, a real salesperson, but then improving upon or helping them out with their job using these new AI tools. So it's like complementing each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
It's not replacing, which I think some people think AI might eventually do, replacing jobs, but no.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big fear with anything AI or automated, right? So if you think about back in the day, we had those telephone operators, right? And then now we all have mobile phones. So new jobs are also created with this, but our thesis or my personal thesis has always been, how can we put people in the center of technology and empower people? Because at the end of the day, people buy from people, right? Like that hasn't changed for thousands of years. If you think about commerce. So how can we translate what works physically into a digital experience?
Okay. I like that. So it's about humanizing the customer experience when it comes to AI and tech. Okay. So what kind of future would you like to live in, or what kind of future do you envision maybe when it comes to e-commerce and retail and all these new technologies that we have from blockchain to AI? Like what's most exciting to you about this future?
I think all the possibilities and opportunities that exists for businesses to be more creative, to also create more sort of future of work movements for their salespeople, right? Because retail is one of those industries. When I say retail, I don't just mean physical stores like clothes and skincare, but also things like cars, right? Automotive. Retail can mean so many things, but that's one of the last industries where the future of work movement has really touched, because sort of office jobs has been more remote, but physical retail, you need to be in the store. So how can we use AI? How can we use VR? How can we use these technologies to also create sort of that future of work movement for retail employees as well?
Okay. And so as a tech entrepreneur, I know this isn't your first rodeo.
Exactly.
So I would love to hear a little bit more about your experience in the world of technology, some takeaways that you have, and how it's brought you to this point where you're at now.
So my journey started, I didn't study tech. I didn't have that in my roadmap. I wanted to work for the UN, so I had a completely different career path. And I studied in Geneva in Switzerland, of all places, economics. And my journey actually started when I started teaching, so very different. But if you remember the time when apps first came out and they sort of announced Steve Jobs announced the App Store, that was a paradigm shift in terms of distribution. That was really interesting to me because suddenly you could create something that was on everybody's phone. that wasn't accessible before. So while I started teaching, I created physical games for my students, so nothing to do with tech, paper, pen, pencil, etc. And I was creating physical games around concepts on economics. But then I saw the launch of the App Store and I thought to myself, okay, well, how can I translate this sort of game into an app? And I took a year off after I graduated and I taught myself everything I could about apps. And that was sort of my first spark or aha moment into this world of technology. Because it wasn't necessarily something that I saw for myself or saw any role models in the space either. That's why representation matters, right? To sort of create that narrative as well. But through that app, I started getting so many requests for teaching online. So I had Skype, email, PayPal, and I had a million things to coordinate my online classes. 21, fully booked on Skype, making over $100 an hour. And I had students in Korea, Japan, Australia, again, you name it, all over the world. So I thought to myself, and this is when you had the trend of Uber, Airbnb, sharing economy movement, but there was no sharing economy of the mind, of knowledge. So I built one of the first truly global marketplaces for live and online learning called Teach Me Now. So we connected teachers and students truly all over the world. Our first class was between a professor in Venezuela teaching a student in Saudi Arabia. And we hadn't marketed to either countries, they organically connected. And we had a single teacher make over $200,000 teaching online through our platform. So it was really empowering to see, again, that sharing economy movement of creating jobs on one side and making learning accessible on the other. So again, my thesis has always been, how do you put people in the center of technology, but use technology to connect or facilitate? And again, it's been really interesting to see that shift, that sort of cultural shift as well. So obviously COVID happened and everything went online. So that resistance to doing virtual consultations, or you mentioned telehealth before, there was a lot of resistance before COVID. And I think one of the interesting sort of movements that catapulted during COVID was that absolute need for digitization and digital transformation. And people who were resisting before in very sort of institutionalized or more heavy industries that were resisting these things before, we're suddenly very open because, need is the mother of invention, so to speak. So it's true. That was really interesting to see that sort of cultural shift as well and be a part of that.
Right. So it was a change of mindset, I think, in a lot of people because there was no other choice for a long time.
There was no other choice. But I still think what we also saw during COVID is people want to connect to people.
Yeah, that's never going to change, I don't think.
No.
Yeah. Okay. And so where did that lead, or how did you then transition to GetBee from there?
So we saw a lot of interest from different companies to do virtual consultations. We actually started in telehealth. So that was our first sort of, because everything went online and there was a big need for healthcare. But we saw that that became a very crowded space very quickly. And as an entrepreneur, you're also listening to the signals you're getting in the market. And a lot of retail clients came to us and said, we also need to connect to our customers virtually, and we also need to offer booking and payment. So you offer all of these things, but how can you make it more relevant to us? And I thought that's a really interesting use case because in Asia and in China, you have live stream shopping. That's a really big trend.
Huge over there. Yeah.
One-to-many, mass webinars. Alibaba, all the major retailers were doing one-to-many, mass.
And it's all live, right?
And it's all live.
Yeah.
It's like a digital QVC of sorts, right? Like TV shopping. But that works really well in Asia, but that never really took off in the West. It never took off here in the Middle East or in the United States, which is an interesting sort of cultural demographic or trend to kind of observe. So thinking to myself, okay, why? And if you look at, especially when it comes to, again, consultative purchases, if you're buying an engagement ring or if you're buying your first car, okay, live stream shopping is a good sort of interactive commercial, but if you're actually in that position of making a purchase, you're expecting a certain level of service, especially in this part of the world or in the West, right?
Something more personalized.
Yes. Yeah. And maybe you have private questions or it's more of a one-to-one concierge sort of high-touch experience.
Right.
So we took that trend and adapted it culturally as well for this part of the world in the United States.
Okay. No, that's a good point. That cultural trends are a big part of
consumer behavior.
Consumer behavior. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what other trends are you seeing when it comes maybe to emerging tech? So AI in particular, we're going to get more into that.
Yeah.
when it comes to the Middle East? And now since you're expanding to the US?
So, I mean, if you look at why Kareem and Souk did really well here when it comes to payments, they also understood that cash was really, like, culturally a really big deal, especially when they were launching, that they accepted cash, right? So that's what I mean by those cultural nuances. So it's interesting to see how they adapted to that and sort of grew based on the cultural insights that they had in the region. So if you look at the trends in the Middle East, again, we really like luxury. We like high touch point. We like to feel special in the sales process. So having that digitally as well is an experience that we're expecting. But a lot of customers today are stuck with chatbots, right? And they just don't cut it, especially if you're buying something over a certain value, like over, let's say, $100, $200, or maybe 500 to 1,000 dirhams. You're expecting a certain level of service, or at least to be able to talk to somebody who's real, not automated.
Yeah.
Because you can also feel that, you can sense that, right? I think we've all been there where we're like, talk to a human, like connect me to somebody, right?
Yeah.
Frustrated.
I've been there many times.
I'm sure. So again, I think that high touch point expectation seamlessness, we are very sort of, in that sense, we have high standards as consumers here because retail is such a big industry in the Middle East, in the region. Right. So all the major retail brands and stores and all these big groups are here. So there is a very high spend also when it comes to luxury spending. So we're expecting that level of service. And Dubai is big, especially the UAE, has become known as that kind of retail destination for tourists as well, right?
Yes.
So that translates digitally, that translates physically in the malls and all the beautiful infrastructure that we've built. So how can we sort of translate that physical experience into a virtual one as well? I think that's also part of why we launched in the Middle East, because it's a great sort of test case, but also showcase of the retail innovation in the region. But now that's also picked up in the United States, and that's really interesting to validate as well. Because of course the scale there is incredible. And then the conversations we're having with Microsoft and having them validate what we're doing from the US and sort of seeing the regional use cases here, I think that's just a testament to how scalable and how sort of relatable this is as well. And having a partner like Microsoft, one of the top tech companies in the world, distributing our sort of software now and IP is super interesting to work with them and to learn from them as well.
Yeah. So since you are working with such a big tech giant like Microsoft, would you then consider yourself more in like the fintech industry at the same time?
I would say more enterprise.
Okay.
And we collaborate with fintechs, yes, because we're not a fintech per se, but very much an enablement of fintech.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of people are building banking or payment infrastructure. We have the use cases and again, business of context to feed or drive financial transactions.
Right. So these transactions would be happening in real time while the video conversations are taking place.
Exactly.
Customers are adding products to the basket and the transaction's happening, right?
Exactly.
Okay. I understand.
So I can actually push you to pay or to prompt you to pay during a sales conversation. And again, we're collecting all the data points around, okay, how long did the conversation last for? What questions were asked? What is recommended versus bought? What was added to basket? You can see all of these things.
Okay, got it. All right. And so starting your own company, managing your own company takes lots of resources, including financing.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you, based on your experience, how easy or difficult has it been to gain access to capital and to finance your businesses?
So VC funding is a chapter in itself, and maybe we could do a podcast just on that. But VC funding is interesting, and funding in general is interesting because it is quite an existential question, because you have to ask yourself a lot of questions to really, truly understand why you're getting funding. I think a lot of people can be an ego play for a lot of founders as well, funding for the sake of funding. But why are you raising this kind of capital? Because not all businesses are VC backable or scalable, if that makes sense. And especially in the MENA region, because it is a relatively smaller tech ecosystem with smaller exit potential. Because at the end of the day, if you're VC backable, you're looking for an exit or an IPO or an M&A type of a scenario, right? Whereas in the US, there's just so many more possibilities. So of course, it's a new ecosystem. Things are still growing. And that's exciting from that perspective. But we were very clear on the types of investors we wanted to work with. We also actively said no to ones that weren't aligned with our vision or our values. I think that's also quite important because, again, access to capital is one thing. There's money, there's smart money, and then there's money that's risky. Because if you're not aligned, and if you're not sharing the same vision, if you're not sharing the same values, long term, it's a partnership. It's not like you take the money and then you never see your investors again. It's a continuous relationship that you're building. So I think, again, having access to the right kind of money and the right kind of investors, that's key. And a lot of first-time founders just see funding for the sake of funding. They don't see the big picture. And I think that's a key takeaway for anyone looking for funding. Should really consider in their journey is, ask the investor questions as well. They do DD on you, you do DD on them. Let me talk to some of your founders in your portfolio. When things aren't going well, how can you help? How can you support? These are kind of questions that a lot of founders don't ask.
That's a good point. You're right. Any other advice that you have out there for tech entrepreneurs?
In general, find the right partners, the right people. Again, business is always about people. That's the thesis of what we do and what we're building. Ultimately, business is about people. So find the right partners, the right investors, the right team. The right people will make or break your business. And my sort of guiding question that I ask everyone on my team or everyone that I work with really is, does this make you proud? So that's always been my compass or North Star of Sweats. So does working with this person make you proud? Does working with these investors make you proud? It's sort of a very interesting question to sort of feel and ask yourself, is this really the right choice for me and my business?
Okay. And what is the best way for someone to get in touch with you to learn more about GetBee and about the new announcements or projects that are coming out soon?
Please do follow us on social media, but you can always check us out on getbee.com. That's GETBEE.com. That's our website. We're also on social media. So B is in the B. It actually stands for bringing expertise everywhere. So there is a reason for it.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
So it's not just the animal.
No, exactly. Okay. There's a reason. But yeah, please do get in touch with us on our website. You can also get a free demo on our website as well. We're on social media, so would love to stay in touch.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, we'll put all the links in the description for you guys. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Thea.
Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. I learned a lot. And everyone, make sure to check out GetBee. And thank you for watching this episode in partnership with Mina Search Podcast. Until next time, guys.